The wind hit me first. It wasn't just air. It was a solid wall of freezing violence that slammed into the flight deck at 200 miles an hour. 1 second, we were a tight formation of B-17s cruising over the Ruhr Valley, the sun glinting off the aluminum of the Lucky Lady, and the next, the world had ended. There was a sound like a grand piano being dropped from the Empire State Building, a dissonant, shattering crack that vibrated through the soles of my boots in the top turret. Then, the screaming started. Not from the men, but from the metal. The slipstream roared through the fuselage with such intensity it sucked the breath right out of my lungs. I looked down from my perch, expecting to see the back of Captain Miller's head and the co-pilot, Johnny Red Evans, managing the throttles. I saw neither. I saw the sky, a jagged, smoking hole where the nose of our flying fortress used to be. The 88mm flak shell hadn't just punctured us, it had sheared the entire front office apart. The windshields were gone. The instrument panel was a twisted ruin of sparking wires and shattered gauges. The temperature instantly dropped to 40 below zero. The plane lurched violently to the left. We were dropping. The centrifugal force pinned me against the turret ring for a second before I could fight my way down. The smell hit me then. Acrid cordite, burning rubber, and the distinct coppery tang of fresh blood. It's a smell you never scrub out of your nostrils, not even after 70 years. I dropped to the deck, my boots slipping on hydraulic fluid that was freezing into a red slush. Miller was slumped forward, his harness the only thing keeping him from being sucked out into the void. Red was conscious but shocked still, staring at the stump of his control column. The wheel was gone. Just a jagged metal pipe sticking up from the floorboards, vibrating like a tuning fork. The plane was in a shallow dive, picking up speed, the engines screaming as they over-revved without the pilot's hand to calm them. "Pull it up!" I screamed over the roar of the wind, grabbing Red's shoulder. He looked at me, his eyes wide, pupils pinned with terror. He pointed at the stump. There was nothing to grab. The yoke was gone. The linkage was severed. We were 30 tons of aluminum and bombs, hurtling toward Germany at 300 miles an hour, and we had no steering wheel. I didn't think. You don't think in moments like that. You rely on what your hands know. Before the war, back in Brooklyn, I wasn't a soldier. I was a mechanic for the transit authority. I spent my days in the dark tunnels under Flatbush Avenue, fixing the signal relays and the heavy tension cables that switched the tracks. I knew tension. I knew that every machine, no matter how complex, is just a series of pulls and pushes. I scrambled past Red, dropping to my knees on the freezing metal floor. The wind was deafening, tearing at my flight suit, trying to drag me out through the shattered nose. I jammed my hand into the open cavity beneath the pilot's pedestal. The metal was jagged and sliced through my heavy leather glove, cutting my hand, but I couldn't feel it. My fingers frantically searched the darkness of the control column housing. I felt them. The elevator control cables. 2 thick braided steel lines, greased and cold. They were still intact, running from the severed stump under the floorboards all the way back to the tail. The mechanism that transferred the wheel's movement to the cables was smashed, but the cables themselves were still there. "Grab the throttles!" I yelled at Red, kicking his boot. He snapped out of his trance, grabbing the 4 levers and pulling them back, cutting the power. The screaming of the engines died down, but the nose was still dropping. The altimeter on the navigator's table, miraculously spared, was unwinding fast. 18,000 feet, 17,000. I wrapped my hands around the steel cables. I braced my boots against the bulkhead and pulled. I pulled with everything I had, every ounce of strength built up from years of hauling heavy conduit in the subway tunnels. The steel bit into my palms, crushing the leather of my gloves. The nose of the B-17 shuddered. It felt heavy, impossibly heavy. The slipstream fought me. The elevators at the back of the plane were size of barn doors, and I was trying to move them with my bare hands against a 200-mile-an-hour wind. I gritted my teeth, screaming with the effort, feeling the muscles in my back spasm. Slowly, agonizingly, the horizon in front of the shattered nose began to drop. The plane groaned, the rivets popping in protest, but the dive shallowed. We were level. "Don't let go, Frank! For God's sake, don't let go!" Red was shouting now, his voice cracking over the wind. I was holding the lives of 9 men in my hands. Literally. If I relaxed my grip for a second, the elevators would snap back to neutral, the nose would drop, and we would spin into the ground. I was the autopilot now. I was the elevator servo. I was the only thing keeping gravity from winning. That's the thing about war that the movies never get right. They show you the shooting, the explosions, the glory. They don't show you the mechanical brutality of it. They don't show you a 20-year-old kid from Brooklyn, freezing to death in a shattered cockpit, holding onto a greased steel cable until his tendons feel like they're going to snap, knowing that if he sneezes, everyone dies. We weren't supposed to be there. Technically, I was just a tech sergeant, a flight engineer. My job was to man the top turret and fix things that broke. The manual said that in the event of pilot incapacitation, the co-pilot takes over. The manual didn't say what to do when the co-pilot's controls are sheared off and the pilot is bleeding out over the throttle quadrant. The manual assumes you have a plane that's still shaped like a plane. We were flying a wreck. "Navigation!" I yelled into my throat mic, praying the intercom was still working. "Where are we?" Static. Then, a shaky voice. It was Cohen, the navigator. He was down in the nose, or what was left of it. I couldn't see him from where I was crouched, but the fact that he was answering meant he hadn't been sucked out. We're past the target, Frank. Turning for the rally point, but we're losing formation." "Forget the formation!" I shouted, the wind tearing the words from my mouth. "Give me a heading for home, the shortest route. 270, straight west." I looked at Red. He nodded, grabbing the rudder pedals to gently bank us left. I had to compensate. As the plane banked, the lift changed. The nose wanted to drop. I had to pull harder on the cables. The steel wire was cutting into my flesh now, the cold numbing the pain, but not the fatigue. My arms were burning with lactic acid. "How long?" I asked Red. "How long to the channel?" He looked at the map, then at the airspeed indicator, which was fluctuating wildly. At this speed, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3. 3 hours. I had been holding the cables for 3 minutes, and my arms were already shaking. I looked at the blood seeping through my gloves where the wire strands had pierced the leather. I looked at the open sky in front of us. 3 hours of pulling against a hurricane. It's funny where your mind goes when you're in a spot like that. I didn't think about dying. I didn't think about the Germans below us. I thought about my dad's hardware store on 4th Avenue. I thought about the way he used to yell at me for winding the extension cords too tight. "You'll break the copper, Frank. Treat the wire with respect and it'll carry the current. Fight it and it'll spark." I was fighting the wire. I had to treat it with respect. I had to become part of the loop. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. I adjusted my grip, wrapping the cable around my forearm to take the strain off my fingers. It cut off the circulation, but it gave me more leverage. I locked my elbows. I became a statue. "Miller's waking up," Red said, leaning over the captain. I glanced up. Miller was groaning, his head lolling to the side. There was a nasty gash on his forehead, blood matting his hair and freezing on his cheek. He blinked, trying to focus on the devastation in front of him. He looked at the open sky, then down at me, crouched on the floor, wrestling with the innards of his airplane. "Sullivan?" he wheezed. "What the hell are you doing?" "Flying the plane, Captain," I grunted through clenched teeth. "Or trying to." Miller tried to sit up, but grimaced and grabbed his ribs. "My yoke." "Gone, sir. You took a direct hit. I've got the elevator cables. Red's on the rudders and throttles." Miller closed his eyes for a second, processing the impossibility of it. He was a good officer, a West Point man. He knew the book. He also knew when to throw the book out the window. He looked at me with a clarity that cut through his concussion. "You can't hold that forever, Sergeant." "I know, sir, but I can hold it for 10 minutes. Then maybe another 10. "We need to lighten the load," Miller said, his voice stronger now. "If we're going to limp home, we need to be light. Everything goes. Guns, ammo, flak vests, everything." He keyed the mic. "Crew, this is the captain. We're in bad shape. I want everything that isn't bolted down thrown out the waist windows. Now. That includes the ball turret guns if you can dismantle them. Move!" I could feel the vibrations of the crew moving in the back. The plane bobbed as weight shifted. Every movement required me to adjust the tension on the cables. A little pull here, a little slack there. It was like fishing for marlin, playing the line, feeling the tension. "Frank," Red said, his voice low. "Bandits. 12 o'clock high." My heart stopped. I couldn't look up. I couldn't take my eyes off the floorboards. But I heard them. The high-pitched whine of Daimler-Benz engines. Focke-Wulf 190s. The Luftwaffe wolves coming to finish off the straggler. We were a sitting duck. No nose guns. The top turret, my turret, was unmanned because I was down here playing human autopilot. We had the waist gunners and the tail gunner, but we were slow, damaged, and flying straight and level. "Get back in the turret, Frank!" Red yelled. "I can't!" I screamed back. "If I let go, we nosedive!" "I'll take the cables!" Miller shouted. He unbuckled his harness, sliding out of his seat. He was pale, clutching his side, but he dropped to his knees beside me. "Give them to me." Captain, your ribs. Give me the damn cables, Sergeant. That's an order. Get up there and keep them off us. I looked at his hands. They were shaking, but his eyes were hard as flint. I nodded. On 3. 1, 2, 3. I transferred the tension. Miller gasped as the weight of the elevators hit him. He grunted, his face turning white, beads of sweat instantly freezing on his forehead. But he held it. Go! He rasped. I scrambled up, slipping on the frozen blood, and climbed into the top turret. I swung the seat around and powered up the twin 50 calibers. The cold up in the bubble was even worse, a direct assault on my exposed skin. I saw them. 3 of them, diving out of the sun. Yellow noses. They knew we were hurt. They were coming in for the kill, lining up on our shattered nose. I racked the charging handles. Chick, chick. Come on, you bastards, I whispered. The first fighter opened up. I saw the sparkles of his 20mm cannons blinking on his wings. Tracers zipped past our canopy, one smashing into the armor plate behind Miller's head. I stomped on the foot pedal, swinging the turret. I led him. Just like shooting ducks back in the marshes of Long Island, only these ducks shot back. I pressed the triggers. The heavy machine guns hammered against my chest, the vibration shaking my whole body. Tracers poured out of my barrels, a stream of red fire reaching out to meet the German. I saw pieces of his wing fly off. Smoke trailed. He broke right, diving away. Got one! I yelled. But the second one was already there. He came in low, trying to rake the belly. The ball turret gunner, celestial music to my ears, opened up. The whole plane shuddered with the recoil of our defensive fire. I was swinging the turret around for the third fighter when the plane bucked violently. Miller had slipped. The nose dipped sharp. Captain! I screamed. The fighter overshot us as we dropped, his burst going high. We were falling again. I scrambled out of the turret, dropping back down to the flight deck. Miller was on the floor, curled around the cables, groaning. He hadn't let go, but he didn't have the strength to pull back against the dive. I grabbed the cables above his hands, adding my strength to his. Pull, Captain, pull! Together we hauled back. We were 2 men wrestling a Leviathan. The nose came up, sluggish and angry. We leveled out. I can't hold it, Miller whispered. He was passing out from the pain. I got it, sir. I got it. I took the full weight again. My arms were screaming. My fingers were locked into claws, cramped permanently around the wire. The fighters had moved on, likely low on fuel or ammo, or maybe they just figured we were going to crash anyway. We were alone in the sky again, just the roar of the wind and the drone of the engines. An hour passed, then another. My world narrowed down to those 2 steel cables. I learned their language. I could feel the air currents buffeting the tail before the plane even moved. I learned to make micro-adjustments. I was hallucinating from the cold and the fatigue. I saw my mother standing in the nose, holding a plate of Sunday roast. I saw the Brooklyn Bridge stretching out through the clouds. Coastline! Cohen yelled over the intercom. I see the channel! The relief that washed over me almost made me drop the cables. We were crossing out of enemy territory, but the channel was cold water, and we were losing altitude. We couldn't hold 20,000 feet. We were down to 8,000. The air was thicker here, warmer, but the turbulence was worse. The plane bucked and kicked like a wild horse. We can't make England, Red said, his voice flat. Fuel pressure is dropping in number 3 and 4. We're losing engines. We have to ditch, Miller whispered from the floor. He was conscious again, but barely. Ditching a B-17 is a suicide run. Ditching a B-17 with no nose and no flight controls, steered by a mechanic pulling on wires, is a guaranteed death sentence. If the nose digs in, the plane flips. We would break apart and drown in seconds. No, I said. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was stubbornness. We are not putting her in the drink. I didn't pull these damn cables for 3 hours to drown. Frank, be reasonable, Red said. There's an emergency strip just across the coast at Manston, but the runway is short. We'd have to come in hot. You can't control the flare with those cables. You don't have the finesse. I've got the finesse, I lied. I couldn't feel my hands anymore. I was just a machine made of pain. Line us up. If we miss, we crash on land. At least then we don't freeze in the water. Red looked at me, then at the captain. Miller nodded weakly. Do it. The descent was a nightmare. As we got lower, the air got rougher. The plane wallowed. Every bump required a massive correction from my exhausted muscles. I was weeping. Tears were freezing on my cheeks. I was cursing God, the Army, and the Wright brothers. Gear down! Red shouted. The wheels dropped with a clunk. The drag hit us. The nose wanted to drop. I had to pull harder. My back cracked. I thought my spine was going to snap. Flaps! Flaps coming down! We were coming in fast, too fast. The ground rushed up to meet us, green fields, hedgerows, the white concrete of the runway. Pull, Frank, pull back! Red screamed. This was it. The flare. The moment you transition from flying to rolling. If I pulled too hard, we'd stall and drop like a stone. If I didn't pull enough, we'd wheelbarrow into the ground and cartwheel. I closed my eyes. I didn't look at the runway. I felt the wire. I felt the tension. I remembered the subway cables, smooth application of force, no jerking. I leaned back using my body weight, hauling the cables toward my chest. The nose came up. The main wheels kissed the concrete. Screech! We bounced. A massive, bone-jarring bounce. Hold it! Red yelled. I held the tension. We settled again. The tail wheel touched. We were rolling. Red stood on the brakes. The plane shuddered, slewing to the left. We ran off the runway, tearing through the grass, mud spraying up through the open nose. We spun, 180-degree ground loop, and came to a stop. Silence. For the first time in 6 hours, the wind stopped. The engines coughed and died. I didn't let go. I couldn't. My hands were locked. Frank, Red said softly. He unbuckled and crawled over to me. Frank, we're down. You can let go. He had to pry my fingers off the cables one by one. They were stiff as claws, blue and bloody. When he finally freed me, I just fell over sideways onto the floor. I couldn't move. I lay there, staring at the wires that had saved us. They carried me out of the plane on a stretcher. I remember looking back at the lucky lady. She was a mess. The nose was gone. The fuselage was riddled with holes. She looked like a carcass. But she had brought us home. A flight surgeon cut my gloves off. He whistled low. Severe frostbite, ligament damage. Son, how long were you holding that tension? 10 minutes, I mumbled, my mind drifting. Just 10 minutes at a time. I spent 3 months in a hospital in England. My hands never fully recovered. Even now, 70 years later, they ache when it rains. I can't make a tight fist. I drop things sometimes, but I kept my hands. And 7 men kept their lives. For years, I didn't talk about it. Back then, everybody had a story. The guy at the deli had stormed Normandy. The mailman had been in the Pacific. Who wanted to hear about a mechanic pulling on some wires? It didn't feel heroic. It felt like work. It felt like a really bad day at the shop, just with more gunfire. But lately I look around and I see people giving up when things get hard. They hit a bump, and they let go of the wheel. They think because the manual doesn't have the answer, there is no answer. I tell this story now not to brag about what I did. I was scared out of my mind. I tell it because I want you to know that when the controls snap, and the pilot is down, and the world is screaming in your face, you don't have to crash. You can reach into the wreckage. You can find the raw connection. And if you hold on tight enough, and you don't let the pain stop you, you can bring the whole damn thing home. That's what I learned at 20,000 feet. You are stronger than the machine. You are stronger than the cold. You just have to decide not to let go. The ground shook before we heard the sound. That's the thing about artillery and frozen earth. The vibration travels faster through the ice than the blast wave moves through the heavy air. I was face down in a foxhole that I hadn't dug deep enough, pressing my helmet into the dirt so hard I could feel the steel rim cutting into my forehead. The smell of pine sap was gone, replaced instantly by the sulfurous stench of pulverized rock and cordite. It was December 17th, 1944. The Ardennes. The Germans weren't supposed to be here. Intelligence said they were done, broken, retreating to the Rhine. Intelligence was wrong. I could hear the distinctive ripping canvas sound of an MG-42 opening up to my left, tearing through the trees, turning the serene white forest into a slaughterhouse of splintered wood and flesh. I looked up, just an inch over the lip of the frozen mud. Gray shapes were moving through the mist. Tanks, tigers. Their engines growled with a deep, guttural, mechanical hate that vibrated in your chest cavity. We had M1 rifles and a single bazooka with 3 rounds. They had 70 tons of steel. I had 3 seconds to decide if I was going to die in this hole or die trying to get to the radio on the Jeep 50 yards behind me. I didn't choose to be a hero. I chose to be a mechanic. That's what I was back in Ohio before the world caught fire. I fixed tractors. I understood that machines, no matter how big, had breaking points. I saw the lead Tiger tank grinding its gears, the track slipping on the icy incline. He was heavy, too heavy for the soft shoulder of the road. If I stayed, the coaxial machine gun would cut me in half. If I ran, the sniper in the trees might get me. But that tank, it was vulnerable for exactly 4 seconds while the driver shifted to compensate for the slide. I scrambled out of the hole, boots slipping on the permafrost, my lungs burning with the intake of air that felt like swallowed glass. I didn't run away. I ran toward the flank. We had been sitting in the Schnee Eifel for 2 weeks, told it was a ghost front, a place for weary units to rest and green units to learn the ropes. I was with the 2nd Infantry Division, and we weren't green, but we were tired. The manual said to establish overlapping fields of fire and dig in. We did that, but the manual didn't account for a massive counteroffensive that hit us like a tidal wave of steel. The strategy was shattered in the first hour. Now it was just survival. The doctrinal approach was to hold the line. The reality was that the line had disintegrated. It was chaos. Every man was an island. I saw Miller, a kid from Jersey who lied about his age to enlist, trying to load his M1 with shaking hands. He dropped the clip into the snow. He looked at me, eyes wide, paralyzed. "Move, Miller! Fall back to the ridge!" I screamed, grabbing his collar and hauling him up. The fabric tore, but he moved. A spray of dirt kicked up right where his head had been a second before. We scrambled over the roots and fallen branches. The forest was alive with snapping bullets. It sounded like a swarm of angry hornets buzzing past your ears. Thwip, thwip, crack. We made it to the defilade behind a cluster of thick oaks. I checked my ammo. 3 clips, 1 grenade, and my knife. My hands were trembling, not from fear, though God knows I was terrified, but from the adrenaline dump. It feels like electricity wiring through your veins, making everything sharp and blurry at the same time. I could see the weave of the fabric on Miller's jacket. I could smell the wet wool and the unwashed bodies of men who hadn't seen a shower in a month. "Sarge, they're everywhere!" Miller gasped, clutching his rifle like a crucifix. "Where's the lieutenant?" "Dead," I said. It was blunt. It was cruel, but it was the truth. I saw him go down in the first volley, his chest opened up by shrapnel. "I'm in charge now, and we aren't dying here today." I wasn't an officer. I was a sergeant. In the civilian world, I fixed combines and threshers. I knew that if a belt snapped, the whole machine stopped. The Army is a machine. The lieutenant was the steering wheel, but the sergeants, we were the drive belts. We transferred the power, and right now, the machine was jamming. I had to clear the blockage. "Listen to me." I grabbed Miller's shoulder, squeezing hard enough to bruise. "We need to get to the rally point at Rosherath, but we can't go up the road. The Panzers own the road now. We go through the ravine. It's steep, it's mined, but they can't get tanks in there." "Mined?" Miller's voice squeaked. "Would you rather step on a mine or take a tank shell to the face? Move!" We moved. The snow was knee-deep in the ravine. It sucked at our boots, trying to hold us back. Every step was a labor. I was breathing hard, the cold air freezing the mucus in my nose. My mind flashed back to the quarry back home. Winter of '38. The conveyor belt had snapped in a blizzard. Old Man Henderson told us to leave it, wait for the thaw. I didn't listen. I spent 12 hours in the freezing wind, splicing that rubber belt with numb fingers, because I knew if we didn't get the gravel out, the town roads wouldn't get paved come spring. I learned then that the cold doesn't care about you. The metal doesn't care. You have to force your will upon the world if you want to fix anything. War is just breaking things. I spent my life fixing them. It felt like a cosmic joke. We found 3 others in the ravine. Johnson, a heavy gunner without his gun, Kowalski, a radio operator with a radio that had a bullet hole through the transceiver, and a kid I didn't know, maybe a replacement clutching a bloody arm. "Sullivan!" Johnson whispered, relief washing over his soot-stained face. We thought the whole platoon was wiped. "Not yet," I said. "Check your ammo. Distribute what you have. We're walking out of here." "Walk?" Kowalski looked at the steep walls of the ravine. "To where? The Krauts are behind us, in front of us. We're surrounded, Frank. We're only surrounded if we stop moving," I snapped. I checked the replacement's arm, flesh wound, through the tricep. Clean exit. Wrap it tight. Keep moving. If you stop, you freeze. If you freeze, you die. We moved in a column, spaced 10 yards apart. I took point. I used to hunt deer in the dense woods of Ohio. You learn to look for shapes that don't belong. Straight lines in nature are rare. The curve of a helmet, the barrel of a Mauser, the gray of a uniform against the white snow. My eyes scanned every bush, every shadow. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. The silence in the ravine was worse than the shelling. Up on the ridge, the battle was raging. A dull, continuous roar like a thunderstorm that wouldn't break. But down here, the snow dampened everything. The only sound was the crunch of boots and the labored breathing of 5 terrified men. Then I smelled it. Acrid tobacco, German tobacco. It smells different than Lucky Strike's. rougher. I raised a fist. The column froze. I sank to one knee, blending into a snowdrift. Ahead, maybe 40 yards, a fallen log crossed the stream. Sitting on it were 2 German soldiers. They were eating, just eating hardtack and smoking, rifles propped against the log. They looked relaxed. They thought they had won. They thought the Americans were running so fast we wouldn't be creeping through a mined ravine. I motioned Johnson forward. He crept up beside me. I pointed. He nodded. He pulled his trench knife. I shook my head. Too far. Too risky. I tapped my rifle. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. We raised our M1s. The heavy woodstock felt solid against my cheek. I aligned the iron sights. The front post settled on the chest of the one on the left. He was laughing at something the other one said. A puff of steam came out of his mouth. I squeezed the trigger. The recoil slammed into my shoulder. The loud crack shattered the silence. The German on the left crumpled backward off the log. The second one scrambled for his rifle, but Johnson was faster. Bang! 2 down. We didn't celebrate. We didn't high-five. We moved up checking the bodies. They were young, maybe 18. Kids, just like Miller. The one I shot had a picture in his pocket, a girl with braided hair. I didn't look at it long. I shoved it back into his tunic. "Grab their ammo if it fits," I ordered, my voice hollow. "And check for maps." Kowalski found a map case. He opened it, his hands shaking. "Jesus, Frank, look at this." He traced the red grease pencil lines. They weren't just pushing us back. They were driving a wedge straight for Antwerp. They were splitting the Allied armies in 2. We weren't just a lost platoon. We were speed bumps on the road to a Nazi victory. "We have to get this to HQ," Kowalski said. "They need to know the strength of this column." "Radio is dead," I reminded him. "Then we run," Johnson said. "No," I said, looking at the map. "We don't run. We delay." The men looked at me like I had grown a second head. "Delay?" Miller stammered. "Sarge, there's 5 of us. There's a Panzer division up there. Look at the map," I pointed with a dirty fingernail. "This ravine opens up at the crossroads near Krinkelt. That's the only hard road capable of supporting those Tiger tanks. If they get to that crossroads, they flank the entire battalion. If we blow the bridge at the end of this ravine, we force them into the mud." "We don't have explosives," Johnson grunted. "We have hands," I said, "and I'm a mechanic. I saw a supply truck ditched about a mile back, near where we started. If it has mines or even spare fuel, we can make something." "Go back?" Miller sounded like he was going to cry. "You want to go back toward the tanks?" "I want to go home, Miller," I yelled, the frustration finally boiling over. "I want to sit on my porch and drink a cold beer and never see snow again. But if those tanks cross that bridge, none of us are going home. We do this, or we die running. That's the choice." They stared at me. I saw the fear in their eyes, but I also saw something else. Resignation. They knew I was right. In 1944, you didn't fight for the flag or for Roosevelt or for apple pie. You fought because the guy next to you needed you to. You fought because the alternative was letting your brothers down. "Okay," Johnson said, spitting into the snow. "Let's go find that truck." We doubled back. The sounds of battle were getting louder. The Germans were advancing. We were moving into the teeth of the enemy. We moved like ghosts. I led them up the slope, away from the ravine, toward the burning remains of our convoy. The truck was there, a deuce and a half, nosed into a ditch. The canvas cover was burning, but the bed seemed intact. "Keep your eyes open," I whispered. I vaulted into the back of the truck. Crates, ration boxes, and there, in the corner, wooden crates with yellow markings, anti-tank mines, M1A1s. "Jackpot," I whispered. "Sarge! Half-track coming!" Miller hissed from the tree line. I froze. I could hear the clanking of treads. A German Hanomag was coming down the road, spraying machine gun fire into the woods, clearing the way. "Grab the mines! 2 each!" I ordered. We grabbed the heavy discs, 10 pounds of TNT each. We scrambled out of the truck just as the Hanomag rounded the bend. The gunner saw us. "Amerikaner!" he shouted. Bullets chewed up the side of the truck. Wood splinters rained down on me. "Go! Go! Go!" We sprinted back toward the ravine, carrying 20 pounds of explosives each, slipping on the ice, bullets snapping branches around our heads. I felt a tug on my sleeve, a bullet passing through the fabric of my jacket, missing my arm by millimeters. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. We slid down the embankment into the ravine, tumbling into the snow. We were out of sight for a moment. "Is everyone hit?" I gasped, checking my body. "I'm good," Johnson wheezed. "Miller?" Miller was pale, staring at his leg. A dark stain was spreading on his trousers. I think so, Sarge." I ripped his pant leg open. A graze. Bloody, but didn't hit the bone or artery. "You're fine. It's a scratch. Walk it off. It burns, he whimpered. Pain is good. Pain means you're alive. Pick up your minds. We made it to the bridge. It wasn't a big bridge, just a stone arch over a frozen creek, but it was the bottleneck. If we dropped it, the tigers would have to go off-road, and in this mud, that meant they would bog down. How do we blow it? Kowalski asked. We don't have detonators or fuse wire. I looked at the mines. They were pressure-activated. You needed a tank to roll over them to set them off. We needed to blow the keystone of the arch. We daisy-chain them, I said, my mind working through the mechanics. We stack them. One goes, they all go, but we need a trigger. I looked at my M1. Then I looked at the mines. We shoot them? Johnson asked, incredulous. We shoot them. That's suicide. You have to be close to hit it accurately, and the blast. We draw straws, I said. No, Johnson said. He stood up straight, wiping his nose with a dirty glove. I'm the best shot. I'll do it. I'm the ranking NCO, I argued. And you're the only one who knows how to get these guys to the rally point, Johnson countered. You said it yourself, Frank. You're the mechanic. You fix things. I just break things. Let me break this bridge. I looked at Johnson. He was a coal miner from West Virginia, tough as nails. We had shared a foxhole in Normandy. I knew about his wife, Sarah. I knew he wanted to open a hardware store. Johnson. Go, Frank, set them up. I'll stay back. We stacked the mines under the stone arch. 10 of them. Enough explosive power to level a city block. We packed them with snow to tamp the blast. I grabbed Johnson's hand. Give 'em hell, Harry. See you on the other side, Sarge. We retreated. We ran as fast as we could down the creek bed, away from the bridge. We were about 200 yards away when we heard the engines. The lead Tiger tank was rumbling onto the bridge. I could hear the squeal of its tracks. I stopped and turned around. I couldn't see Johnson, but I knew where he was. Hiding in the brush, M1 raised, waiting for the perfect moment. Waiting for the weight of the tank to be directly over the explosives. Crack! One rifle shot. For a split second, nothing happened. Then, the world turned white. The ground kicked me into the air. The sound was deafening, a physical blow that knocked the wind out of me. I looked up. The bridge was gone. A massive cloud of smoke and dust hung in the air. The Tiger tank was upside down in the creek bed, burning. Johnson! I screamed. Silence. We waited 10 minutes. No movement. Just the crackle of the burning tank. He's gone, Sarge, Kowalski said softly. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It tasted like ash. Johnson had traded his life for 4 seconds of delay. He had bought us time. Move out, I said, my voice cracking. We don't waste what he bought us. We walked for hours. The sun began to set, casting long purple shadows across the snow. The temperature dropped to 0. My feet were numb blocks of ice. I couldn't feel my toes. Trench foot was coming, I knew it. But we kept moving. We reached the American lines at Rocherath just after dark. A sentry challenged us. Thunder! He yelled. Flash! I screamed back, the countersign never feeling so sweet. We stumbled into the command post. It was a farmhouse basement, crowded with wounded men, cigarette smoke, and the chaotic noise of radios. A captain looked up from a map table. Who the hell are you? Sergeant Sullivan, 2nd ID, stragglers. We came up the ravine. The ravine? That sector is overrun. Not anymore, sir. Bridge is blown. The Kraut armor is stuck in the creek. The captain looked at me, then at the map. He drew a line. You blew the bridge? How? Private Johnson did it, sir. The captain nodded slowly. Good work, Sergeant. Get your men some chow and find a spot on the line. They're going to hit us again at dawn. I found a corner of the basement. I sat down, leaning my head back against the cold stone wall. I closed my eyes. I could still hear the explosion. I could still see Johnson's face. I pulled out my bayonet and started scraping the mud off my boots. The rhythmic scrape, scrape, scrape calmed me. I was a mechanic. I had fixed the line, but I had lost a part of the machine that could never be replaced. That night, I dreamed of the quarry. I was trying to fix the conveyor belt, but every time I touched it, it turned into snakes. The next morning, the attack came again. This time, it wasn't tanks. It was infantry. Wave after wave of white-clad stormtroopers screaming across the fields. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. I was on a .30 caliber machine gun in a hayloft. Miller was feeding the belt. Here they come! Miller yelled. I pressed the butterfly trigger. The gun bucked. Brass casings sprayed onto the floor. I watched the tracers stitch a line across the snow. Men fell. They kept coming. It was a tide of humanity. Barrel change! I shouted. Barrel's hot! My hands were blistered from the heat of the gun, but I didn't feel it. We swapped the barrel in 10 seconds. A skill drilled into us until we could do it in our sleep. The war wasn't about strategy for us anymore. It was about mechanics. Feed the gun, clear the jam, cool the barrel, repeat. It was a factory of death, and I was the foreman. By noon, the field in front of the farmhouse was littered with gray heaps. The snow was stained pink. The attack slowed down. I took a moment to light a cigarette. My hands were shaking so bad I almost burned my nose. I looked at Miller. He was older now. Just since yesterday, he had aged 10 years. His eyes were hollow. The boy from Jersey was gone. "You okay, kid?" I asked. "I'm empty, Sarge," he said, staring at the wall. "I don't feel anything." "That's good," I lied. "Feelings get you killed. Stay empty." But I wasn't empty. I was full of rage, full of grief, full of questions that had no answers. Why did the tank slip? Why did Johnson draw the short straw? Why was I still breathing when better men were freezing in the mud? We held Rocherath for 3 days. 3 days of hell. We slept in shifts of 20 minutes. We ate cold beans from cans. We drank water from melted snow that tasted like gunpowder. On the 4th day, the sky cleared. We heard a sound that made grown men cry. Engines. But not tank engines, aircraft engines. P-47 Thunderbolts. They came in low, diving on the German columns. We watched from our foxholes, cheering like it was a football game. We saw the pillars of black smoke rising where the German armor was parked. The tide had turned. The machine was working again, but the Battle of the Bulge was far from over. We were ordered to counterattack, to push back into the forest we had just fled, to retake the ground where Johnson died. We moved out at 800. The woods were a graveyard. Shattered trees, shattered vehicles, shattered men. We walked past the ravine. I looked down. The bridge was still a ruin. The Tiger tank was a rusted hulk. I wanted to go down there, to find Johnson's body, to bury him. But the lieutenant, a new one, fresh from the States, ordered us forward. "No stopping, Sergeant. We have an objective." "Yes, sir," I said. I marched past my friend. I left him there in the snow. That's the hardest part of war. You don't get closure. You just get orders. We pushed deeper into Germany. The resistance stiffened. We were fighting for every yard of ground. One night we were holed up in a captured bunker. It was concrete, warm, electric lights, luxury. I found a German radio. I tinkered with it. My mechanic instincts took over. I stripped a wire, bypassed a blown fuse. Music filled the bunker. Marlene Dietrich. Lily Marlene. The men stopped talking. We listened to the enemy's music. It was beautiful. It was sad. It reminded us that the guys on the other side of the line were just like us. Scared, cold, missing someone. "Turn it off," the new lieutenant said. "It's fraternizing." "It's just a song, sir," I said, not moving my hand. He looked at me. He saw the grease under my fingernails, the 1,000-yard stare in my eyes. He saw that I wasn't really there. "Turn it off, Sergeant," he repeated, softer this time. I clicked the switch. The silence rushed back in, heavy and oppressive. We were nearing the Siegfried Line, the Dragon's Teeth, concrete tank traps that stretched for miles. It was the border of the Reich. Breaking through that was going to be the hardest job yet. I spent the night cleaning my rifle, taking it apart, oiling every spring, every pin, inspecting the gas cylinder. The metal was my rosary. The rhythmic click-clack of reassembly was my prayer. God, let the spring hold. Let the firing pin strike true. Let the extractor claw grab the rim. Amen. The next morning, we hit the pillboxes. Concrete monsters with machine guns that fired 1,200 rounds a minute. You can't shoot a pillbox. You have to burn it out. "Sullivan, take the flamethrower team up the left flank." I grabbed the heavy tank from a kid who had been hit. I strapped it on. It weighed 70 pounds. Napalm. Jellied gasoline. I felt like a dragon. I crawled through the mud, keeping low. The pillbox slit was a dark eye watching me. I could see the muzzle flashes. I got to within 20 yards. I stood up. I squeezed the trigger. A stream of liquid fire arced through the air. It hit the slit. The screams that came from inside were not human. I dropped to the ground, panting. I felt sick. I felt powerful. I felt like a monster. I was a mechanic. I fixed things. But here I was, destroying the most complex machine of all, the human body. We took the pillbox. We checked inside. Charred bodies. The smell of roast pork. I vomited in the corner. Miller came up to me. "Good shot, Sarge." I looked at him. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." I wiped my mouth. "Check the weapons. Reload. We move in 10. This was only the beginning. January 1945 was colder than December. The snow turned to gray slush. The bodies froze and thawed and froze again. I started to notice something about myself. I was getting better at it. I was anticipating the mortar rounds before they hit. I knew where the snipers would be before they fired. I was adapting. I was becoming part of the war machine, and that scared me more than dying. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. We came upon a town called St. Vith. It was a ruin. The buildings were skeletons. We were clearing houses room by room, kick the door, toss a grenade, spray the room, repeat. I kicked a door on the second floor of a bakery. I didn't toss a grenade. I don't know why. Instinct. I swung my rifle in. A German soldier was standing there. He had no weapon. He was holding a loaf of bread. He looked at me. I looked at him. He was old, maybe 50. Volkssturm, the home guard. He held out the bread. I lowered my rifle. Go, I whispered. Rouse. He nodded, tears running down his face. He dropped the bread and ran out the back door. Miller came in behind me. Clear? Clear, I said. I picked up the bread. It was stale, rock hard. I put it in my pack. Why did I let him go? He was the enemy. He would have killed me if he had a gun. But he didn't have a gun. He had bread. And for a second, he wasn't a Nazi. He was just a hungry old man. And I wasn't a sergeant. I was Frank from Ohio. That moment of mercy, it almost got me killed the next day.